Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I've got a very special guest and friend and survivor sister, Maureen Ruhl. And she's an author. She's written a book called Frozen Tears. And we did an interview a while back, earlier this winter, and on my show. But now we're doing another interview to really discuss how this book actually opens the conversation, starts the conversation, what a great tool it is um, to help children who have been sexually abused. And Maureen's going to go into real depth and just describe how this book really works to get that conversation started. And so I'm really glad to be here today. Maureen Ruhl is a survivor sister like me. We're both survivors of child sexual abuse. And although that's why we're doing this work, because the topic of child sexual abuse for so long was pushed under the carpet. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to deal with it. Very uncomfortable topic. And so over the years, there's been a whole lot more progress being made. And, it's coming to the forefront. We do need to talk about this. It's very important. So I'm glad to be here, glad to be able to be a part of this with Maureen. I'm very thankful to Maureen for coming on to do this interview with us with AU4H Radio. And Maureen is actually a friend of AU4H, Advocacy United for Humanity. She does a lot of volunteering for us. And she's just been a huge support. And so we also like to support what she's doing in her work. So it's great to have you here, Maureen.
Thank you. I appreciate your emphasis on how important the work is, how important it is to talk about it. And I guess as a survivor, that was my real motivator. I was so tired of people saying, oh, I just can't talk about a subject that's disheartening. It breaks my heart, And it's like, well, yes, it breaks your heart. It's horrible, but we need to talk about it. We need to give these kids a chance to heal. And that wasn't available, I'm sure, for you. It certainly wasn't available for me. And that's one of the reasons I was motivated to write the book. So the book is Frozen Tears, because and it's an ice cream cone showing how precious the human body is and how delicate, and then a cone that represents also the fragility of a child. As adults, we forget that we were once children, and we forget about our frailty. And it's important to remember that we're not asking children to process this very complex problem as an adult. We're asking them to process it as a child. And whether this is a child of 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 years old, or whether this is a child who's 60 years old, but still dealing with their inner child, their broken spirit, this book is for all of them. It opens up, first of all, with pictures of kids laughing, smiling, the idyllic mom and the kids. And this is really affects anybody. You don't know the prosperity of these kids. You don't know if they live in an apartment building in the middle of the city square, a high-rise apartment, or if they live in a typical house with a white picket fence. It doesn't matter. Sexual abuse happens to everyone.
Right.
Again, it's full of kids. Kids, kids, kids. This is what the book was made and written about. I would hope that the book is used with a therapist in a clinical setting, or a policeman, nurse, rabbi, pastor.
Yeah.
It should be
going to be working with that child.
With the child.
A professional, who's going to actually get that conversation started. Yeah.
Yes. That a safe person. That's what we do, a safe person.
That's right. So,
because they're going to be reading this book with the child. And the grown-up takes on a huge responsibility as this child shares their story. And please, let's remember that it's a child's story. It's not to be manipulated. It's not to be made worse than it is, or made better than it is. Adults tend to do that. This is a situation where we want to really just tell the story in truth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that my microphone that I hear feedback, or?
I don't know, because I'm not hearing any feedback. So
okay. I just don't want it to be difficult for it for our audience to hear us or understand. And also, I'd like to say at this point that child sexual abuse does take us to the feelings of helplessness. It does take us to the feelings of maybe perhaps wanting to end our lives, or perhaps it takes us somewhere that we rage and we will drink it to death, or try to take pills to swallow pills to make the pain go away. The pain doesn't go away without a lot of hard work, a lot of love, a lot of prayer. And this is the reason that the book was written. It's not a magic pill, but once the book is used, at the end of that, I would hope that the child could maybe set the book aside for 20 years and then come back and look at it and say, oh, wow, 20 years ago I was here, but today I'm here. And they can gauge their success and their healing from that. Perhaps they want to torch it. Perhaps they want to throw it in a burning barrel and burn it. I don't know. But whatever they need to do, the book is for theirs to do that. Some of the things are building skills. We have, who do you trust? List the types of media which has touched you in your life today. I don't think a lot of parents actually know how much media traffic their children are undertaking. They're in a lot of crossroads and on the roads of a lot of social networking. I'm not well versed, and you all know, Lee, Donna, and you have a front row seat to my inadequacies about sending emails, successful emails. So
no, you're doing good.
And so can you imagine me being left to be on the internet by myself? I'd be so lost. I wouldn't get anywhere. But it allows, when the child answers that question, they might have 3 or 4 or 8 or 12 different answers. And the parent, guardian, police officer, social worker, they need this information, the detailed information that can only come from the child themselves.
That's right.
Also, what are they learning on these websites? Because I think we think safe websites teach safe things. I don't think that we can be that naive.
Yeah, that's right.
What word describes how you are feeling at this moment? I don't believe that we take enough time to sit down with our children, listen, and ask them how they're feeling, how school went. Well, now they don't go to school. Oftentimes they're taught in the home in a lot of situations right now with COVID.
Yeah.
The kids don't even get to leave home and come home and share their day. So they figure that by being in the next room or at the kitchen table with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, that they know what's going on their computer. The child doesn't know that is unique to them. And so I think we've lost valuable communication tools that we really need to get back. We need to get to our post-COVID world as soon as safely possible.
Yeah, I agree.
I also remind the children that they were created out of purest love. a lot of people don't think that they were formed out of love. They think they were formed out of chaos. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that take it back, take all the chaos away, all the anger, the ridicule, the whatever the adults may be feeling or going through. Take that away, because your child was conceived and brought into the world in a safe environment and a loving environment. And then that poses a question: what does love look like to you? So, and they can draw the answers, they can write some answers, they can do whatever they want on this page. Mm-hmm. Most of the pages are like this. Children,
that's awesome.
Children look up to adults. I mean, obviously, because of small stature, they're 4 foot high, we're 6 foot high, but they look up to us because they hope, they think that we know what we're doing. We've got it, we've secured the future, we're living our dreams. But one of the things that I think really children need to understand with this book is that they're allowed to feel what they're feeling at that moment. It's okay, even if it's good, bad, or ugly. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we miss that. We get too clinical, and we ask good questions, but we don't ask sometimes the right questions. And children will pick up on that, and they will answer what they think the adult wants to hear. Mm-hmm. So they hold back. So yeah. This is more like a coloring book that it's not thick at all. It's not cumbersome. It's not meant to do in one session. It has no time limit, no structure. It's whatever the child wants to, how fast and speed that the child has indicated. Has someone asked you to keep a secret? Now that could be very naive, like, don't tell mom and dad that I changed the remote, or I changed the password. Or it could be, but how did that by keeping a secret, how did it make that child feel? And the next question is, did keeping that secret make you hurt inside? And I think we all have know what hurt feels like. And I think we all need to understand that in a child, hurt is usually manifest as pain. It is in adults too, but adults have some mechanisms that we use to, it doesn't go to pain first, hurt to pain. But as a child, it does. Hurt goes to pain. So, how keeping this a secret, no matter how important or unimportant, how did it make the child feel? We're halfway through the book, and now we're going to be talking about more in-depth questions about touching bodies. And I won't go into that too deep, except that what I do is by helping to calm that question down, because it will make a child race.
That's right.
By using the word boundary. Can you name another type of boundary? And explaining, and that the boundary goes back to the ice cream cone. It's a boundary. And so that's what it starts. And it doesn't change it doesn't change or devalue the pain that the child's going to feel when they're talking about the abuse. But it is able to let them have a control, one of their first control mechanisms, like, oh, I have boundaries. And boundaries are explained in setting limits, because I think that children don't have the grasp on setting a limit to anything because they're not supposed to. Children are supposed to experience everything in joy and love and happiness. This book is for those children who unfortunately have missed that boat and have to work their way back and swim like to catch the next boat of happiness, hopefulness, and happiness. It also goes into, has anyone asked or tried to make you change your boundary? That's a significant part because now we're talking about the imposition of someone onto that child into their intimate self. And then the next page is a little girl who's in bed. What is she dreaming? What is she thinking about? What is going on in this picture for the child? What do they see in this picture? Not what we see. And please let the child drive the dialogue. As adults, we tend to want to hurry or push ahead. Please be genuine when you're using this book to let the child tell their story without embellishment, because that will serve no one well. Then we talk about ice cream. I love ice cream. Oh,
I do too.
I had some chocolate raspberry. Oh, that was delicious. What flavor of ice cream what is your favorite? And you can hear and why and how. And again, reemphasizing that ice cream in that cone. And as previously stated, it was a boundary. Then there's dialogue, more informational. And this is where the therapist, the professional, can pick up on the text and ask more general questions that will delve into that child, exactly where that child is. It also introduces saying no. Children don't believe they have the right to say no.
That's right.
This gives them permission to say no. Or if they had to say no, under what circumstances were those that they had, what do you mean you had to say no to the next door neighbor? What about what? The child, that's the first thing a parent's going to say. Well, how dare you tell them no? Listen to the child first before making your set opinion in stone. Because there could be something serious going on. And the last thing that the book approaches is what is danger. I hated to pick on this topic because danger, I don't want them to be overwhelmed with danger and to be afraid, but we have to understand that danger exists. And it can exist in the most safe and loving homes. It can exist in impractical homes, dysfunctional homes. But what does danger look like to you? Then there's a little boy who's sitting on the seashore. And what is he thinking about? What's he processing? What's going on here for that child? And then finally, it finishes out with dialogue that the professional or medical professional would be in dialogue, not leading questions, just hearing the child complete, be happy, be joyful with each step you take. After they're doing this hard work of reliving the abuse and putting it out there for everybody to see, you have to then take them back that there is danger in the world, but it's not constantly. There is joy and there is happiness for each of us every day. And I would recommend that if anyone doesn't feel joy and happiness every day, please seek out help, whether it be through your own blogs, whether it be through support groups, whether it be through a therapist or a social sociologist. I'm not suggesting everybody needs to see a therapist and everybody should be on medication. But I do say that those things work for a majority of people if they give it a full-hearted, give it your best shot. And then, of course, it ends with pictures again of children, because obviously the healing of children after such a traumatic experience, there can't be any more important work that I can think of.
Yeah.
And I hate that I had to write the book. I hate that that we still have in our educated and technologically advanced society that we still have child victims.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, I do too. But we know it's happening, and that's why this is so important. And I think, I really love your book, and I think it's wonderful. Like I'm a survivor of CSA child sexual abuse too, and it was incest. So it was within the family. I never got any help. I basically stuffed it so I could live and just survive. Didn't do anything about my healing journey until the age of 42. But that book would even be helpful for me to go back with my inner children, as and redo that work with my inner children. Well, especially the one who was sexually abused, that inner 8-year-old that I used to be, right? Yeah. And because so many children actually, sadly enough, don't get help. And we know that some do, obviously, but so many don't. And it's just horrific, right? It's just, I think that's a great book for children. It makes sense to me the way that you've written it and put it together. When you're describing it, I'm thinking of myself as being a child, and actually, because I was abused sexually as a child, the question, how I would answer those questions, and really, really well done. I think it's amazing, and because the last thing you want to do is a child who's been victimized and sexually abused. The last thing you want to do is scare them some more. So that book is not, it's not frightening. It's a wonderful book. And I think it really does open the door to get started on that conversation, on what happened, and get that child to, a better place. You know what I mean? Right. Like we said, the secret, has anybody ever asked you to keep a secret? And, well, actually, I'd say many survivors, maybe not all, but many survivors of CSA child sexual abuse were told to keep the secret. Maybe their lives were threatened. I know in my case, that was the case. My life was threatened. And my mother was my main abuser. So I was actually afraid to tell her because I thought she would abuse me because I told her. Right. I was worried that she'd beat me up because I told her that. See, after the third assault, I did tell her. And she told me it was my problem. I had to deal with it. Yeah, that was her answer. So she didn't get me any help, and she knew about it. So this is a lot of times this sort of stuff is just allowed to go on. It's really sad and tragic. Sometimes it's stranger danger. We know. Sometimes it's a stranger and not someone in the family. But it's almost like what they say. The stats were a while back. It's almost 90% or more. Someone the child knows. Someone the child has someone who's had access to that child, that's who's abusing those children. And so many times they are told to keep that secret, right? And so I think the book is really well thought out. You did a great job thinking about and creating these questions and these sentences that allow that child to safely express what that was. You know what I mean? I hope so. And yeah. And it's my hope that the book
will not only open the dialogue with that child, but open the dialogue as a nation, as a world, that we can all begin to focus on the end result is everyone gets through their difficult journey and gets back to wellness, healing. That healing is allowed to take place. By ignoring healing in any level is a disservice. It's almost inhumane. We surely wouldn't leave an animal in distress. We would find care immediately for that animal. I have 3 beagles. You know, I love them to death, and sometimes they even join us on podcasts. But
they're cute.
I cannot imagine that we have empathy for a 4-legged pet, but when we talk about 2-legged children, it becomes, oh, yeah, well, it's just a brush burn. Get up and go. Brush yourself off and go. We have no idea how that brush burn was sustained.
Yeah.
You know, let's find out. Let's ask the question. And a lot of us, all I hear a lot is that is such a difficult, subject. How can you begin to talk about it? And I thought, well, we have to begin to talk about it. We have thousands of children parentless at our border in the United States and Mexico. We need to talk about that. We need to talk about how we can warehouse children and not think twice about it. I'm not getting political. I know that there's many levels, and I sure couldn't be. I don't have the answers for all the troubles that besiege us.
No, that's the problem. Nobody has the answers, unfortunately. But we need to find those answers because these are children's lives we're talking about. These are
yes,
human lives. And this is going on around the world, though, we know.
Sex trafficking, sad statistics. Villages of children disappearing.
Yeah.
But we don't have that on the nightly news because, people don't want to hear about it. We have to massage the news almost to make it palatable so that people can actually ingest it. Well, I'm sorry, but we need to have a reality check because life is not palatable. We have car accidents. We have dear friends dying of cancer, dying of COVID. We have family members who lost an arm or a leg to cancer. We have terrible things happening all around us, and we seem to be able to deal with them in stride, but we can't take on the constant sexual abuse or sexual harassment of a child. That we can't handle. We need a special agency for that. I don't understand it. I mean, every agency should be in the business of saving children. Every teacher should be in the business of saving a child.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
I mean, every citizen, if you see something, say something. Please, dear Lord, please say something. Step up to the plate.
Yeah, that's right. Because children can't protect themselves. They truly are at the mercy of, whoever's got a hold of them. And the issue is that's why we need to be looking out for them. And because children, I guess the reason this just sits so hard with me is because I was abused as a child. And I think that, I made it, I survived, but many of them won't. And that's the issue. That's pretty well why I never shut up about this.
Well, thank goodness.
Anybody who really knows me, my real friends, know that I actually really absolutely never ever give up. I never stop talking about this. And because the issue is children are dying right now, right? And when are we going to start caring? You know what I mean? When are we going to start caring? It's been going on, for since time began.
Yep.
It's only recent that that anyone's been any remotely concerned about child rights and the right that a child actually has a right to life, and they have a right to an abuse-free life. And so if we don't get this conversation, if we don't keep these conversations going, it gets swept under the carpet. And it's like, oh, society says, great, I'm comfortable now. I don't have to hear about all that horrible stuff. I just think that that's the wrong attitude. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it breaks my heart. It really does that this stuff is going on. And we can't even begin to touch the tip of the iceberg on the amount of abuse that's happening to children around the world right now.
Right now.
Yeah, just this second, and then the next second, and the next second. It's unbelievable. And we need to, people's, societies need to change the way that they feel about children. Children are not sex toys. Let's just get that straight.
Yeah.
They're not sex toys. And they're not there for your sexual gratification. They're really not. Children deserve to have a good abuse-free life. And, they deserve to be taken care of, nurtured, fed and clothed, and their needs met, right? And it's just so tragic what's going on. And that's what your book, even in that sense, Frozen Tears, even in that sense, although it's really it's a recovery tool and to start the conversation, but just because it's out there, it's just one more, way for people to see that this is still going on. And there's more and more victims all the time of CSA child sexual abuse. And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. I
think that people think they have a choice that to ignore child sexual abuse, and I don't think that we have a choice anymore. It's become so rampant and so in our face, and with the technology, we know in our hearts what the numbers are. We know that it's growing, it's out of control, and we have a job to do. And now it's time to do the job at hand. I know we have many, many problems in this world, but that's adults. For the most part, children don't really care about $15 an hour minimum wage. They shouldn't. That's a discussion we need to have, but the discussion that we also need to have is our children's welfare, their dignity, helping them to be the best person they can, and having opportunities with strings attached is not an opportunity.
That's right. And it's just, this is just it. And I just think, what you had said earlier, Maureen, about, many children who survive child sexual abuse and actually live through it and, start living their lives. Many of them can't cope and, end up doing drugs or alcohol, trying to numb that pain, trying to make those memories go away, and, end up harming themselves, end up harming other people sometimes. And some of them end up taking their lives. That's where I was, so many years ago. And, I'm glad to be here today because, I didn't follow through with my plans for years of taking my own life. And it wasn't, until the age of 42 that I actually started to get help. But I had gotten off the drugs at a young age, which was smart. But the thing is that so many don't. And they're long, they've started out. No child should. No, this is what breaks my heart. Children are innocent. They really are. And people don't, I guess so many people just don't appreciate children. I don't have children because I've made barren by the CSA child sexual abuse that I suffered. So I can't have children. So I never had children. But the thing is people just look at children like they're just, like nothing, like whatever. The issue is that's a living human being who is completely vulnerable and completely relying on those around them in their family unit, whoever that is, whoever's raising that child, in their school age years, the teachers, the school counselors and coaches. That child is counting on those people to do the right thing by them. That child
Yes,
is, yeah. I mean,
and doing the right thing isn't just getting them into the best college and university or trade school. And wait, those are all important. But if they are not getting 3 squares a day, if they come to school with black and blue marks that are visible, if they're complaining of aches and pains that are not normal, that other children are suffering aches and pains, if they say things in class in front of other classmates that are inappropriate, it's coming from somewhere.
mm-hmm.
And I know that it puts an additional burden on teachers, and they have a very difficult job now. And
Right.
I'm not saying that's
That's
why I'm
true.
saying that citizens, every one of us, is responsible for
Mm-hmm.
the child to maintain for a child to be able to be know know that you're safe enough that they could confide in you, or if not confide in you, get them a resource that they can confide in. And if people are already in those positions, it's part of their job already.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
um, but it's not a blame game. I know a 14-year-old came up to me one day and said, "I'm pregnant." And I said, "What? How old are you?" "I'm 14." I said, "Oh, when I was 14, I was in the 8th grade, and I was dealing with, what do you call that? When you have group of kids against another group of kids,
Like
uh,
gangs,
gang, yeah, and
bullying.
bullying, and here you are pregnant." She said, "Yeah, because I want to be able to have someone that I can love and that I can do this with and that with." I said, "Well, you already have an agenda for that child. Um, what's the agenda for you? What are you going to do to provide for this child?" And she looked at me like I was dumbstruck or something, like no one had even given her that question to think about. What Okay, you want to provide all this for this child, but how are you going to do so?
Mm-hmm. That's children
And
have children, right?
she's still a child, 14
Yes.
years old, 8th or
Yeah.
ninth grade. I mean, they should be thinking about acne and trying to get on a sports team or trying to get in a spelling bee, or I don't know, but not pregnancy.
Yes, because that's a real challenge. It's hard enough for 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds to manage their young families. You
Right.
can imagine someone who's 14 who's not even legally allowed to work. You know what I mean? Like, someone's going to have to support them.
And
The hard.
it's a 24/7 job. This is not
Mhm.
something you can just pick up and do when you want to. Maybe the family dog, they get a family dog and the kids all say, "I'll feed it, I'll groom it, I'll take it to the vet, I'll do this, I'll do that." And they make all these promises. And somehow the promises fall through, and it falls on the parents to take up the real day-to-day feeding and
Mhm.
maintenance of that dog. If they can't even take care of a dog, making sure that the dog is fed and that there's clean water, fresh water available. How in the world are they going to take on a 24/7 child that has colic, is up at night,
Mhm.
uh, may have a serious, because of the age of the parent, at 14 years old, perhaps the child is in a high risk pregnancy. How are they going to handle, then there might be a high risk delivery. The
Mhm.
child may be at risk. They don't even think about these things. And I
Well,
know that
they're too young. Yeah.
I know, but they're not too young to get pregnant. So maybe we
No.
have to change our thought process about
Well,
explaining.
And I mean, not all young people, like I'm sure there's a lot of good young parents out there. So this is not to say anything against young parents or, people who,
Oh my, no. No.
young women who have children at a very early age. There's nothing against that. The issue is that it needs to be thought out, and it needs to be something that you're prepared to do. And you have, if you're that age, you're going to have people help you. You can't do that on your own.
In fact, I've met some 14-year-olds that were in fact very decent parents compared to their parents who maybe were in their 30s. I mean,
yeah, this is the thing.
It's parenting, it's not an age. No, I'm just saying that they miss a lot of being a kid. And why should children give up their childhood to be adults so soon?
Yeah, that's right, because you have a long time to be an adult, right? And that's when you're young, though, you just want to get started, and I remember being that age, being young and thinking I knew it all and I was ready for life, It's like, I don't know why I was in such a hurry because, once you're an adult for a long, long time. And, I heard adults say stuff like, oh, slow down. You don't want to rush your youth because you only have it for a short time. And it kind of went in one ear and out the other sort of thing. But the issue is, I like your book, and I think it really addresses some really important stuff. And I think when you brought up the topic of where your book says that it allows the child to see, maybe for the very first time, that they actually do have the right to say no. And if they ever did have to say no to somebody, who was it? You know what I mean? And this is the issue, because growing up abused myself, I didn't know I had the right to say no. My brother had sexually abused me for a year, and rape, violent rape and incest was just horrible. I was 8 years old. My mother did nothing to stop it, and so I didn't know I had the right to say no. See, so this really affected me through my early years, because then I had a lot of other unwanted sexual touching because I didn't know to say no. I thought that I was supposed to just allow anybody to do anything they wanted to me. And that's terrible. Until I was about getting closer to 13, I really did not know that I could say no, It's so important for parents, if you're a parent out there and you're listening to this, you need to get the information on how to approach this stuff with your child, age dependent, how old your children are, and start addressing some of this stuff with them, because they do need to know that keeping a secret of somebody sexually using them, they need to be able to come to you as the parent or the caregiver with anything, and they need to be told, if someone tells you to keep a secret because because it's something that they don't want anybody to know about and it's hurting you, you need to come talk to me. You need to tell me. You know what I mean? Parents, caregivers, they need to start this conversation with their children and their care to make sure that the child is not being abused sexually or in any other way by anybody around them that has access to that child. It's just so important. So that's a really important part of your book as well. I think that's just really so important. And just allowing the child to, especially the page where you're talking about allows the child to express their feelings and not putting adult themes into it, and really allowing that child as they are in the moment to express how they're feeling. I think that's really powerful. And that's another reason I think your book would be helpful for me with my inner child. So, because I'm still working through this ASI child sexual abuse stuff, and I'll be, I've been working through my healing journey for a long time. I've made great progress, but that is an area that I still need to do some work in. So, your book's very helpful for, like you said, children, like you were saying, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 60 or 70 or 80.
I had a 90-year-old lady that, it's great honor to have the positive feedback from the book that I've had. That's a great honor. I know that people that have used it have, it helped them through their journey, and that's all it's attempted to do. It doesn't solve anything. At the end of the book, you don't become magically healed, completely healed, because that, like you said, is a journey that we're on for a lifetime. I myself, I'm at a much better place, but I want to say I'm sorry for what your abuse that you had to go through, and that you had a mother who was unable to help. I know my own mother was a loving, caring woman, but she didn't always have the resources for certain things. I don't know all of her past. Um, and my dad had some interesting childhood things when he was growing up, which I only learned of later. So we can't assume that. I guess the first instinct is, why aren't these people helping me? You know, they're supposed to help me, but the sad truth in my situation was that they didn't have the energy to fight anymore. They had won battles of their own in some cases and lost some battles of their own. And I can love them enough now to not make an excuse, but to understand that they were not in a position to help me. And that's okay. It's okay. It wasn't okay while I was going through it. I demanded and I hoped for better. But the truth is that they went through some horrible things themselves, and
that's the case for so many people, right? And that's,
yeah.
that's the issue. Like my parents were, that's this whole cycle of abuse type thing. And my parents were abused as children, and they went on to perpetuate the cycle. Who knows how
Yes.
far back it went? I mean, I don't know if my grandparents were abused, you know what I'm saying? So it was a cyclical thing. They didn't break the cycle. There were siblings of mine that actually did break the cycle and did not abuse their children, which is wonderful. I didn't have children because I couldn't have children, but if I would have had children, I would have loved them dearly and taken really good care of them, because that's me. Because it's just wrong to hurt your children, and it's wrong to not get them some help. And
Right.
just, knowing, I mean, I just think that's just the kind of person I am. But you're right. I mean, so many people are struggling, and I know, like right now, there could be parents listening to this, people who have children, who are struggling, and they don't want to hurt their children, but somehow things, are just escalating, things are out of control, and you can get help as a parent. You don't have to allow uh, you know, to have that kind of pressure on yourself. You can get help, right? There are
Yes.
agencies that step in and help you. If you're abusing your children, you can get help so you can stop abusing your children
Yep.
and get your children some help, right? Because this is the issue. Um, so many people are struggling, and it's hard, in today's world, especially with what's going on with this COVID-19 thing. Really hard to be a parent right now, I can imagine, with your children in the house 24/7, no space, tempers, are flaring. There's also that whole issue of then more one-on-one, adult children contact, which can be a real problem if there's CSH sexual abuse going on.
Right.
It's really, this is so difficult, all this stuff. But as a parent, you don't have to struggle. You don't have to hurt your children. And you can get yourself some help, and you can get your children some help, right? But you have to care enough about yourself and about your children to do something about it. And
And
like my parents were, yeah.
it takes a brave and strong individual, and you are brave and you are strong, and wanting to seek a healthy alternative for yourself, for your child, is going to be a journey, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah,
I guarantee it. It will be worth it.
that's right. So it's just important for people to know. And if you're a survivor of abuse and you're listening to this, survivor of CSH sexual abuse, there's hope for you too. You don't have to struggle on your own. You can reach out, even if you have to keep a low profile. There's anonymous groups you can join. You can keep your name anonymous. Nobody needs to know who you are, and you can get help. That's what I did in the beginning. Was I went on to anonymous support groups because I needed help and I wasn't sure what to do about it. I just joined some anonymous support group type stuff, and it was really helpful. and nobody needed to know who I was or anything about me other than the fact that I was abused as a child. See, so there are ways you can do that if you need to keep keep yourself safe by being anonymous, sort of thing. And there's all sorts of good resources for people out there, who are struggling. If you're a survivor of abuse, child sexual abuse, you can get help, right? And
Yes,
you don't have to
yes.
keep that, you don't have to keep that bottled up inside by yourself anymore. There's so many people out here who are, working to get awareness out there so that people will realize you don't have to keep that secret anymore, and
No.
you can get help, right? I know it was very freeing for me um, to get help. Like at the age of 42, when I finally decided, okay, I'm getting help. I didn't deserve to be abused as a child, and no child does. And I'm suffering on because of the abuse that happened so many years before. And I thought, this is really horrible. And I thought, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to get some help. And it was so freeing to be able to get that help. You know what I mean? So that I was no longer carrying that burden by myself. I got to unload it, in this anonymous group with people that understood where I came from. They knew what I had suffered as a child, and they knew the pain involved from being sexually abused, especially by a family member. And they were so helpful, so helpful.
And sometimes I worked with therapists, and maybe the first therapist was a man, and I knew that I just wasn't going to reveal to a man what I might reveal to a woman. I knew that. It had nothing to do with him. He is to this day a terrific, therapist. But I knew I needed a woman therapist. It was in picking and choosing, and then it wasn't the first woman that I worked with that it wasn't a magical man and woman thing either. I had another one and another one until I found the right fit for me. Someone, and there's a click. There's just something clicks, and it's and then they gave me these little tools, and I said, okay, I'm going to put them in my little toolbox, and I have tools.
Yeah.
And there was, I felt dirty. I felt less than a human being. I was I laughed. I joked in school. I won comedian of the class or something, class clown. So I must have pulled off one of the best little, shows, because to everybody else, they thought I was a happy-go-lucky kid, but I was suffering inside. I had real deficiencies.
Yeah, I did too.
So to get class clown over another girl who I thought was funnier than me, or who I thought was funny, and it just blew my mind that I would get such an honor, knowing that if they only knew what I'm going through, how dare they even give me some sort of title like this. But I don't want anyone to feel ugly. I don't want anyone to feel like you're less than a person. You're a whole person. You're as whole as I am, or as whole as the rest of the thing. You've had an incident, or multiple incidents where something that was out of your control became part of your daily living, and just don't stop.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't stop.
That's right. I mean, I was, just looking at different materials out there, for people. I was actually looking at something today earlier, and it was like, survivors of abuse are the main issue is just the wounding. You know what I mean? And it was from so long ago that we need to get help. Right? We're not a bad person because we've been abused. We don't have to look down on ourselves. Others shouldn't see us as any lesser than somebody else. And we just need to learn how to, like you were saying, Maureen, we need to, first of all, find some good help, right? Some good therapy, counseling, whatever, group support. That's what I like. And get get going on it, you know what I mean, and get these tools in your toolbox that can help you to move forward in your healing journey so that you don't stay stuck in this shroud of silence and despair and, you know, the same, like I was, before I started my healing journey, I still had the same feelings that I had, you know, growing up abused, right? And that's just horrific to keep allowing myself to stay there. I'm really glad that I finally reached out. That's why I'm always, you know, telling people, you know, reach out, get some help. Don't suffer on your own. Some people are like loner types, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But it's just as long as you don't, if you need help, that you realize that you can get help. That's the issue.
Yes.
And,
And
you
it
know,
and if we could stop labeling people, saying that someone's a drug addict or a pill pusher or an alcohol, whatever these words are. These are not helpful words for people. That's not who they are. They have a
yeah,
first and last name. They have maybe perhaps a middle name as well. They have a birth date. They were they're the same as you and I, and we have to stop just
they're
putting
people.
names because we don't know what drove them to take that drink of alcohol or
That's right.
to abuse medications. Therefore, since you don't know their story, please don't think you do by identifying them with some horrible label.
Mm-hmm,
And then it stops there. It's like, oh, they're just a town druggie.
mm-hmm.
Okay. What does that even say about the person saying such a thing?
Yeah. I think it's
That's
just all too common, right? And that's the
well,
issue.
it
It's
is
all too
common
common for
because
people
pain,
to just label people. Oh,
yeah,
that's a loser. You know, that person's just an idiot or whatever. People are just like that, and
yeah,
that's a
but
real
that also
shame because.
gets them off the hook. It gets them off the hook to really know that person. They
Hmm.
don't even say, they don't even say hi to that person, not even a common decency. Hold the door if their hands are full coming out of the grocery store and they can't even bother to take the time to hold the door for them. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, it's that person. And
Hmm.
none of
Yeah.
us are too good for one another. So
That's
we're
right.
all in we're all in this boat together. Let's
That's
enjoy the
right.
journey and lift each other up. Lift each other
Right.
up.
I agree. That's awesome, Maureen. I love that. That's what we need to be doing, right? And supporting each other and helping each other. Really, it's that's what it's all about. I love your mission. I love what you're doing. And I would, you know, I hope that people will purchase your book. I did put the links in the description, in the YouTube description of the show. I put your book link there. I put your website link there. And, you know, how they can get in touch with you if
Okay.
they need
Thank
to
you
get
so
a hold
very
of
much.
you. Yeah, so that's all there. And you know, it's just I think this book is very very important. I'd like to see a lot of professionals get a hold of it, and you know, hopefully with this interview and the other interviews that you've been doing, people will really start to see this is a very valuable tool, and it's a great resource for people. And there we know there are many children who are surviving and who are survivors of child sexual abuse. So not only there's a lot of adults like us who have survived child sexual abuse, but now we have each generation coming up, that many more children being sexually abused. This is horrific. It's pandemic. It's always been a problem. Let's just put it that way, and it needs to stop. But in the meantime, this book I'd say is very helpful. It's a great resource for people. No.
Well, thank you
Well,
very much, Lori.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with me. I mean, we're friends outside of, of all of this. So we're friends in real life. So not in just the YouTube land, but it's just it's always such a pleasure to be able to spend time with you because I know we're both busy and when we get to come together and talk, it's awesome. And
Well, thank you.
I
It's
appreciate
an
you coming
honor to be
on.
on your show.
It's an honor to have you, and this is just wonderful. And I know, like, if anybody actually does, go check out Advocates United for Humanity. Check out our website, check out our info, and you'll see Maureen there because Maureen does a
Fundraising.
lot of volunteering, and she's always involved in some of the projects that's going on, especially with Don Shear. And
Yep.
it's just amazing. So we appreciate your help. We also appreciate you very much as a person. I love you dearly. And I thank you for coming on and talking about this. Very, very, um, to me, it's a topic that needs to be talked about. And I'm so glad that you wrote that book, and I'm glad that you're out here doing what you're doing. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. And we'll see you around later on. You have a great afternoon. Thanks to
I will.
everybody who's been watching and who's listening. Share the show, share the information, grab Maureen's book. You can purchase it on Lulu or from her website. There's many ways you can contact her if you need to ask her questions or you have just something you want to just let her know. You can always contact Maureen Ruhl, and share the show. You never know who's been sexually abused, or you never know who might be able to use this book to help a child who's been sexually abused. Share this information, share Maureen's information, and get this out here, right? Thanks, everybody, and have a
Thank you.
wonderful day. God bless.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Hi.